Hey, 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 my friend.
Hey, hey, hey.
What's up?
Chillin'. What's up?
I'm over here partying. Dance Party USA. Hey, so how's your week been?
It's been a week.
Has it? Get closer to the mic. Or move the mic closer.
It's been a week.
Oh my God. Just kidding. That was loud. That was loud for all concerned. You can move it closer to you. Jason might have moved it.
I'm here.
The wizard
Close now.
might have just fucked it up.
Close
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another week of Case Files with Kat.
And Ashley.
Yeah, man. So, guess what? I had a question of the week. Did you see it?
I saw. Do I have an answer? Probably not. I did see that you posted one, though.
I did. I posted one. I was like, hey, I saw it. And then I was like, look at me. I'm going to post something. Okay. So I'll repeat it, for you and for everyone. You get pushed into 2030 for 10 minutes and you get one Google search. What are you looking for?
Lottery numbers.
See, I knew you were going to pick that. I also thought about lotto numbers, especially after that last $1 billion
who
one.
Who wouldn't, right? Like if you could go into the future and come back and get rich, like...
I guess it was like, I kept thinking of like, what are some other cool things I'd want to know?
How I died, I guess. But that would be weird. 7
years. Why would you be dead? That's weird.
Know.
That's weird that you think that.
I mean, no one in my family lives very long. So.
Oh God. But like every time I thought of something, I said, nothing $1 billion wouldn't fix.
I mean, that's all I'm saying, right? Like all of my problems right now would be solved with a lot of money.
That's it. And so I know that I don't know if we got any answers.
We did.
It's like, what if it was 2040? Would it be different? Or if it was 2050?
Still
would it be different?
lottery numbers.
Still just lottery numbers.
I don't know.
I don't know if we get answers on our page. If we do, I'm sure lotto numbers are going to be right up there at the top. We can just say everybody said lotto.
We had 5 answers on our page.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how many you had on your. I saw that you shared it.
Oh yeah, I don't even know where my phone is. So that'll be fun. Maybe you can go on my page.
Yeah.
And happy official start of the spooky season.
It's always spooky season.
Official start. Our 13-year-old neighbor reminded me this past Sunday we had a Fakes-giving for our foreign exchange people. And she was like, hey, did you know that we're officially in spooky season because there's nothing else after the 4th of July? It's like, all right. So I'm down. I'm game. I'll do that. So let's go
lots of places have Halloween decorations out. Have I already bought some? Yes. Do I already have some out? Yes.
Really?
Yeah, At Home had theirs like weeks ago, like before July 4th.
Oh, hey, At Home. What's up?
Yeah, so I figured if they had it out, it was cool if I put it out. I mean, like I put it up, but I put stuff out at the
We can be like those Christmas folks who start decorating in July. So see, you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome.
You also had 5 answers on your page.
Oh, I do. Wow. Okay. All right. So this week, I'm just going to get into it because we've got a lot to talk about. Okay. So this week's story is coming right on the heel of a considerable update to the 40 years after the story takes place. Yeah. So I just had to do this one. It wasn't the one I was planning on doing, but it is one that I've been waiting to do for a long time. So let me just get into it. All right. Now close your eyes. Not if you're driving, but close your eyes. Imagine you're in 1982 and you're alive. I don't know if you were alive in 1982.
I was not.
Nope. Okay. So imagine you're in 1982 and you have a headache. If you don't have any pain medicine in the house, you go to the pharmacy and you pick up a bottle of, let's just say Tylenol for the purpose of this story. And you take it home. Now in 1982, the only thing between you and that Tylenol would have been a little glue on a box and the cotton ball in the bottle itself. And that's it. Doesn't that seem wild? Think about all the things we go through now.
Yeah.
So tonight I'll explain why we now have in 2023 not just the glue on the box, but a plastic seal around the lid. And then when you get that off, you have to open the lid. And once you open the lid, there's the foil lid on top of that, the seal. So you have to break that, and then you pull out the cotton ball, and then you have your medicine. So all of that because of what happened in 1982. And it all started on Wednesday, September 29th. So I'll just start there from the beginning. So on Wednesday, September 29th, 1982 at 6:15 a.m., 12-year-old Mary Kellerman woke up feeling really bad. She had a sore throat, had a head cold. So she begged and convinced her parents to let her stay home. So she went to her bathroom, took some extra strength Tylenol her mom had purchased the night before. Almost instantly, her dad could hear Mary begin coughing, and then he heard a thud on the floor. He opened the bathroom door to find her with her eyes open, fixed, and dilated, and her breathing was really fast but shallow. And when the paramedics arrived and took her to the hospital, she was in full cardiac arrest, and nothing they did could help her. This is from the Chicago Tribune.
Yeah.
The doctors, in need of a miracle, installed a pacemaker and called a priest to give the child last rites. Mary, who liked making pottery and cooking with her mother, riding her pony and playing Atari with her dad, was pronounced dead at 9:56 a.m. At 11 a.m. that same day, in Arlington Heights, a suburb near Chicago, Adam Janis, who was 27 years old and a post office supervisor, he had the day off work to run some errands. It was said that he didn't feel so great the day before. He had some chest pains, but nothing too serious. He was well enough to run errands and spend some time with his son. He was kind of like a burly dude, real tall, big guy. Not like fat by any means, just like, fit. He was young. Anyway, he went to go pick up his daughter from the Catholic preschool she attended, and then went to the grocery store, and he picked up several things, picked up some steaks, he picked up some lilies for his wife, which I thought was just really sweet.
Yeah.
Still romancing. And then he got himself some Tylenol for his head. And when he got home, his wife was there, and he went to the bathroom. She was happily putting away all the groceries and everything, getting ready for dinner. And he went to the bathroom to take the Tylenol, and he walked out, and he told his wife, he's like, wow, I really don't feel well. And she followed him to their bedroom, and she could tell just by looking at him, like, oh my gosh, something is really wrong. He does not look right.
Yeah.
So she ran out, and they're Polish, of Polish descent. She didn't speak a lot of English. So she ran out to a neighbor's who she knew was a nurse who spoke Polish and English. And she came over and saw that he was not well and started doing CPR on him and called 911. She tried to do what she could. The paramedics arrived. They also said his eyes were open and fixed and dilated, and his breathing was shallow and quick. And at 27, this healthy man
He was only 27.
This healthy man was in cardiac arrest. Once Teresa Janis was at the hospital, she was able to call his youngest brother, Stanley, telling him that Adam had had a heart attack. And so he raced to the hospital, but it was just too late at that point. And this was from the Chicago Tribune. I quote them a lot in this. They did a great 6 or 7 part deep dive into this story. So they were really on the front lines of this whole thing. So Chicago Tribune again. At Northwest Community Hospital in Arlington Heights, the paramedics trying to revive Janis were met by Dr. Thomas Kim, the medical director of the ICU who had the trust of local first responders. Kim tried to save Janis as well, but his heart never regained a normal, sustained rhythm. Adam, a 27-year-old father who tinkered with clocks in his spare time, was pronounced dead at 3:15 p.m. There was no immediate way to know what killed him, Kim said in an interview. So we're still on the 29th. Stanley, Adam's brother, and the rest of the family went to be with Teresa at Adam and Teresa's home to console her, but also to sort of put those plans into start putting it into action, planning a funeral, what's next, what are the next steps. It's awful. Stanley had severe back pains and tried not to go. He really tried to get out of it. He had only been, he and his wife, also named Teresa, she went by Terry, had just gotten married a few months earlier, and he had some back issues. And so he was, trying to get out of going just then. And his parents were like, absolutely not. You are going to their house. Like, absolutely not. So, he and Terry went, as well as their other brother, Joseph, and then their parents. So it was a whole family affair that went to the house. At 3:45 p.m. in Winfield, so another suburb. This is all in Illinois. It's all around Chicago area. Another tragedy was about to strike. So this is from the Chicago Tribune. About 30 minutes after Adam Janus died, 27-year-old Mary Lynn Reiner was preparing to feed her 6-day-old son in the living room. No. She had a headache, and earlier in the day, she'd purchased Tylenol at a grocery store. Following her doctor's advice, Reiner swallowed 2 capsules and felt dizzy almost immediately. She tried to make her way to the bathroom, but she collapsed onto a kitchen chair and began having seizures. When a police officer arrived at the family duplex, summoned by Reiner's husband, her eyes were fixed and dilated. She experienced one seizure after another while her sobbing mother-in-law held the newborn in her arms. The young mother, who grew up in Villa Park and played softball, died the next day.
This is a depressing story.
Yeah. So at around 5 p.m., back in Arlington Heights, we're back at the Janus's house. Stanley Janus took 2 Tylenol in the bathroom at Adam Janus's place while he was there. Stanley almost immediately walked out, clutching his chest, saying, "My God, I feel bad," before collapsing into his brother's arms. Those same paramedics were called back to the Janus home to find the exact same situation happening. Now they were on alert. The lieutenant even had the big truck follow, which is not usual, but he could tell that something was up. The thing was, when the first call happened and those paramedics arrived, I don't know, I think I deleted this, is what I said. But I'd written it out and I don't see it. So after the paramedics left Adam Janus's house that first time, they went back to the police station and they were like, "I don't know, Lieutenant, man, that was weird. Yeah, he was in cardiac arrest, but his eyes were open and fixed and dilated, and his breathing was like this. Like he didn't exhibit the same signs of cardiac arrest, I guess." And so they were like, "That was just weird." And so then they're getting called back again. And so the lieutenant, they were all sitting down having dinner, and they're like, "Okay, we're all going." So 6 paramedics, lieutenant, everybody was going. So they all went. And they started working on Stanley immediately. And Terry, his wife, she came out and she said, Stanley, before she fell to the floor. And they thought that she had just fainted, but when they turned her over, they could see that her eyes were open and fixed and dilated, and she had shallow and rapid breathing as well. She also took 2 Tylenol for her headache. No one yet had put the puzzle pieces together, though, so all they knew was what was happening right in front of them. They hadn't put it together. The lieutenant called ahead to the hospital to say, "Hey, we're coming back." Dr. Kim, who I quoted earlier, he was on his way out the door, and a nurse stopped him and said, "Someone else from the Janus house is coming. Two more people are coming from the Janus house." And he figured it was the parents, out of grief.
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, it's the brother and his wife, and the same thing is happening." And so he decided to stay, and he worked through those cases. Anyway, so the lieutenant at this point was like, "Okay, we don't know what's going on here. So now all of us have to be quarantined." So they quarantined themselves for a little bit at the hospital to see if anything, is it anthrax? I don't know. They don't know what this airborne.
But they didn't suspect the wife.
No, they're not suspecting.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like, is there something that was in the house? Could it have been something that's airborne in the house and they just don't know what it is, you know? So he just wasn't taking his chances. They rerouted all the calls from, to go somewhere else. At 6:45 p.m., about 20 miles away in Lombard, Mary McFarland, a single mother of 2 young boys, she was taking her dinner break at the Yorktown Shopping Center with her friend and coworker Jan Hoffman. And once they went back to work, Mary went to the back to take some Tylenol for a bad headache. And she was afraid it was going to become a migraine because of the fluorescent lights. She even offered it to another coworker friend, Diana Hildebrand, but she declined. And then not even a few minutes later, she said, I really don't feel good. And then she collapsed right there in the middle of the store. And so everyone's doing CPR. Someone called 911. And when they asked, has she taken anything? Diana Hildebrand said, yes, Tylenol. And so they got it. While at the hospital, she suffered a catastrophic stroke and never recovered from that. At 7 p.m., Lieutenant Kramer called a nurse he knew. So he was still in quarantine. So he called a nurse he knew that he could trust to help with this. And so he called Helen Jensen. She was called the Arlington Heights Village nurse. So she did everything, like, flu shots for first responders to, doing tests and things like that. So she was just kind of like Jill of all trades. So she went straight to the hospital to talk to everyone that was in quarantine, just walked right in and started talking to people. And they were like, what? Like, we're all in quarantine. She was like, I don't care. And so she went back to the Janice's home. They did say she was able to find out from the conversations that they all had taken Tylenol. So she had that in her brain, but she went back to the Janice's to find, could it have been anything else? House was clean as can be. She went to the refrigerator. Is there anything here that's moldy, that's old? Nothing was out of date. Nothing was old. Nothing was rotten. Everything was, there was no bugs. Like everything was just really, really clean. So then she goes to the bathroom, finds the Tylenol, finds the receipt for the Tylenol, and she takes it. She says she even put the Tylenol in her hand and looked at it and didn't wash her hands or anything afterwards. This is like a thing. No one wore gloves.
I'm more impressed that they still had a receipt. I lose every receipt I ever have. So the fact that there was still a receipt.
Well, it just was from the day before. I know. Or that,
I could be 5 seconds out the store and I don't know what the hell happened to my receipt.
That's funny. So he probably took it out of the bag, put it in the bag in the trash can right in the bathroom. You know what I mean? Okay. So she really believed right away that it was the Tylenol, but that was a really hard sell. That was going to be a really hard sell without any other evidence. So at 8:34 p.m. in Chicago, United flight attendant. So that was at 7 p.m. So now it's 8:34 p.m. in Chicago. United flight attendant Paula Prince landed at O'Hare following a long day, and she looked to see when her friend, who also lived in the same condo complex and was also a flight attendant, when she was going to arrive. Her name was Jean Regula Levengood. And so since it was still an hour before she was going to make it, she just went ahead, left her a note in her airport mailbox, said, let's meet. And she wrote, let's meet for a drink later. Prince wrote, I have exciting news to tell you. So they were both like in their 30s. They were single. Paula was beautiful. She was tall and blonde and gorgeous. So she's beautiful. They wanted to be married. They weren't married. They used to have these shirts like "Marry Me, Fly Free" is what Jean said. They had shirts that said that. It was really, really funny. So anyway, so she headed out, stopped at a Walgreens near her condo, and there's actually surveillance footage of this transaction happening, of her purchasing the Tylenol. She was still in uniform. Fun fact, there are people who believe that the suspected killers in that picture, in that video, and that's out there, it could be, it could not be. To me, it's not like, oh, that's definitely him. Yeah. He has a beard. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. He looks a little chunkier than that guy. So I'm not 100% sold it's him, but could have been. Anyway, so At 9:16 p.m., she paid $2.39 for a 24-count bottle of extra-strength Tylenol. So she paid for her own death. So this is from the Chicago Tribune. Once home, Prince put on a flowery nightgown and began taking off her makeup with a cotton ball. She paused to swallow a single capsule from her new purchase, seemingly forgetting that she already had an open bottle of Tylenol in her travel bag. Regula Levengood and Prince's sister would find her lifeless body 2 days later, looking nothing like the striking blonde woman they knew. At 10 p.m., Stanley Janus was pronounced dead, and Terry Janus was on life support with no chance of recovery.
So is this 7 people now? The flight attendant, the 2 mothers, the couple, the brother.
So it's 7 total, but not yet, because Terry Janus is alive.
Oh, okay.
Still. When Lieutenant Kramer and his crew went back to the station, another lieutenant from Arlington Heights called to see why they were out of commission. So Arlington Heights Fire Lieutenant Phil Capitelli said something like that happened in his area, telling him about what happened to Mary Kellerman. It's like, hey, she too took Tylenol. So they were starting. These 2 guys were, they were working together. They started to see the pattern. Now, with Nurse Helen Jensen and the death of Mary Kellerman and the 3 Janus family members, they took this to the doctor who treated the 3 out of the 4, Dr. Kim. They said it was the Tylenol, but Dr. Kim had seen acetaminophen poisonings before, and it didn't look like that. That's not what an acetaminophen poisoning is. That's not the symptoms of it. It looked nothing like it. But he took the chance, and he did a test on both Stanley and Terry in their blood. And he was like, oh, I hope no one looks at this. Because he really felt like he was putting his job on the line by doing that. Because there was no indication that it was the Tylenol other than what this nurse is saying.
And God forbid he does this,
right.
job or something.
But he really was like, I need to figure out what's killing them, and I need to figure it out fast. So he said he felt like his back was up against the wall with this one. Meanwhile, this comes from the Tribune. Meanwhile, an Elk Grove Village police officer brought the Tylenol bottle from the Kellerman home to the hospital and gave it to Nicholas Pichos, an investigator with the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. Pichos already had the bottle left by Jensen from the Janus home. Both bottles had the same lot number. Pichos called his boss, Dr. Edmund Donahue, Deputy Chief Medical Examiner for Cook County. Donahue, who was at home, told him to open one of the bottles and smell inside. Dr. Edmund Donahue shown, when Pichos poured out the capsules, he caught a strong almond scent. The second bottle produced the same bitter smell. Donahue's suspicion was confirmed. He knew instantly the odor was cyanide. I didn't know it smelled like almonds.
I did not either.
So that's a
interesting
little tidbit. He knew instantly it was cyanide, a notorious and rapid-acting poison that cuts off oxygen to red blood cells. The almond odor, another fun fact, isn't always present, and even when it exists, it's discernible only to about 60% of the population.
Oh.
So luckily this guy was one of those 60%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know. So Donahue called Michael Schaefer, the county's chief toxicologist, and asked him to come to the morgue and run tests on the confiscated Tylenol capsules. It was the first time Donahue could ever recall asking the toxicology department to work through the night. This was a crazy idea that there might be something in Tylenol, Donahue said in an interview. I mean, this was the world's most common analgesic. I think that's how you pronounce that.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah.
We'll go
Painkiller.
Yeah.
Okay. So tests would show that 4 of the 44 remaining capsules in the Janus's bottle contained cyanide. Records indicate each capsule had between 550 and 610 milligrams of poison, nearly 3 times the amount needed to kill someone.
You said each pill?
Each
bottle?
Each pill.
Oh my God.
Each capsule.
Jesus.
So 3:07 a.m. Thursday in Chicago. So the first news related to the Tylenol poisonings breaks when a reporter for the City News Bureau, a famed Chicago news organization that operated 24 hours a day, published a bulletin about mysterious deaths. By 5:30 a.m., news broke that the deaths were attributed to an unnamed headache remedy. Quote, the same morning the news broke, stores began pulling the pain reliever from their shelves, and public health departments went door to door with flyers warning people about potentially poisonous capsules in their medicine cabinets. Police officers drove through the streets using bullhorns to order people to throw out their Tylenol.
I've heard this story. I didn't hear this part, though. I mean, I've seen like a documentary.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
They were, bullhorns. Throw out your Tylenol.
Yes.
And so there was
imagine?
Because if you're not watching the news, if you're not listening to the radio, like how else are people going to get in touch with you?
Yeah.
How many people do you know that don't watch the news and like, oh, I don't know what's happening? You know?
Yeah.
Like, there would have to be like text alerts now.
Everywhere. I mean, it would have to be everywhere.
Everywhere. Throw out your Tylenol. So, so they're using bullhorns to have people throw out their Tylenol. They would tell them like, throw it down the toilet, flush it away, throw it away. Some said bring it to the police department. So not everybody.
I would think flushing it would put it in the water system, wouldn't it?
People did it. So they didn't what they should have done is maybe collected, and they might have had a better idea of how many people actually probably could have died.
Yeah.
But of the ones that were turned in and the ones that they did test, they found 3 more in 3 different households. So yikes.
Damn.
Yeah. Because that could have been another Janice. So, here, everybody, working out at my house, like, have some Tylenol. Like, kill everybody. Okay. So on Friday, October 1st, Terry Janice was taken off life support and she died. By the day's end, Paula Prince's body would be found. So that is your 7. All in those 48 hours. I know. So, as I mentioned, investigators noticed that the Janice bottle and the Kellerman bottle came from the same lot, MC2880. And Johnson & Johnson issued a recall for all Tylenol from that lot. But when other bottles from when they were tested and it was from other lots, they just were like, Mary McFarland's was totally different. The recall expanded to cover those lots and then any extra strength Tylenol capsules from any lot purchased in the Chicago area. So it was one of the biggest pharmaceutical recalls ever.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you're even remotely in Illinois, in Illinois, throw away your Tylenol. So now we know who died, and now we know how. But what about the who and the why?
Yeah.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
It's insane.
All right. So it is. It's insane. So we're back on September 30th. The Tylenol investigation began as a loose collaboration among the detectives of Arlington Heights and Elk Grove Village. So that's the towns where those first 3 deaths were identified. By day's end, however, tainted capsules would be blamed for 2 deaths in the DuPage County, neighboring DuPage County, broadening both the scope of the investigation and the threat to the public. So, like, everyone was on high alert. Things were chaotic. There was no clear leader. Lives were still at risk. So that evening, Illinois Attorney General Ty Fainer, I'm not sure if that's how you say his name, but we're going to say it is. He was sitting up on a dais listening to stump speeches at the Kane County Republican Organization's annual dinner. He didn't want to be there. He hated campaigning, but he was there, and there he was, sitting up there. When one of his aides tapped him on the shoulder and was like, "We got a problem." And he's like, "I can't take a call right now." He's like, "Oh no, we got a problem. we got a big problem." So he stepped down. He stepped down from the he stepped down from the dais and he went on to make phone calls, and he just stayed on the phone. And this is like 1982. He had a car phone. He made calls while he was in the car. I'm like, that's pretty ahead of his time, I'd say.
Yeah.
1982, car phone. Wow. Impressed. Anyway, so by the time he reached his house in Evanston, Illinois, he was the de facto leader of what had quickly become the country's highest profile murder case. He ended up taking a lead and getting nicknamed Tylenol Ty for it.
Okay.
And I mean, those first few days, they got a lot done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they really, really did. I mean, they found
It's just such a strange name.
What? Tylenol Ty?
I just feel it.
Funer? I don't know how to say his name. Fainer. Anyway, so a lot of people had a lot of pride in those first few days because they were able to track down the cause. Because if they had waited for an autopsy, that could have been another 18, 24 hours.
Yeah.
But through lots of help and lots of people, they were able to pin it down to like, it's the Tylenol.
Yeah.
And we're going to do these tests. And they found out, oh yeah, it's cyanide. So when they got the blood test back, the one that Dr. Kim sent out, well, they called him and they were like, yeah, it's cyanide. And it's like a lot. It's a lot of cyanide.
Yeah.
Like it's so much. They just said it's so much
without getting flagged.
Oh, I don't know.
I
don't know.
I feel like if you're buying like mass amounts of cyanide somewhere, someone would notice that much missing.
It doesn't seem like you would need that much though. So what's a massive amount?
Well, all the bottles, all the capsules.
But not the whole bottle didn't have not every capsule. So he would just put like some.
Okay.
I think there were some bottles that had all the capsules, but that was a waste. So you just put them at the top.
Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense.
Right. He also, so he called in the FBI, so that he had the coroners, the local police offices, sheriffs, coroners, the FBI, FDA, prosecutors, public health officials. He laid down the foundation to get extra strength Tylenol off store shelves statewide, going beyond the single batch of the pain reliever manufacturer's recall that they had in place. They were like, no, let's make this statewide. He wasn't going to take any chances. So as his team started making calls, a DuPage County deputy coroner named Pete Seichman sat in an office at the Illinois Department of Public Health's toxicology lab in Chicago and waited to see if the Tylenol capsules taken by Mary Lynn Reiner and Mary Sue McFarland were poisoned. And they were, obviously. So here's where it all gets crazy. So a lot of the victims come from different towns, different counties. This means each of those places, there's a police department, there's district attorneys, there's all these different people, right? And everybody wants to become famous for being the one to crack the case. So you can tell, like right off the bat, you can tell like, oh, that's just a recipe for chaos, right? It's just chaos. Plus you add in the FBI, which no one really thought, like the local departments didn't really feel like the FBI had jurisdiction because it was a state crime, not interstate crime, right? Yeah. But the state attorney general is involved, and it's a mess. Yeah. It's a mess. I listened to a great series called the Tylenol Murders podcast, and it comes from the Chicago Tribune. This is their thing. They have one episode called Turf War, and this is why. And I'm not going to get into that, but it is a wild, up and down, crazy mess. And there's so many different names involved. And basically it's everybody like, it's my jurisdiction. I'm going to solve it. And you know how it gets like that. But since this happened in Illinois, the murders fell under the purview of state law and local law enforcement. FYI, product tampering would become a crime in 1983 as a result of this case. But that was in 1983. The law did not exist yet.
I guess you just assumed no one would be crazy enough to do it or messed up enough.
The reason like contents will be hot, the fact that little things like that have to exist because something happened. There was a lawsuit. Something happened. Anyway, so the White House, however, had ordered the FBI to find a way into the case amid growing public panic. So Ronald Reagan was like, we got to do something. Plus, the stock of Johnson & Johnson was tanking. So, he couldn't let that happen. So President Reagan wanted the FBI in the investigation. Retired FBI agent Roy Lane Jr. told the Tribune. And so the Department of Justice just looked up a law and by a little bit of hook and crook said the FBI had jurisdiction because of an FDA law about truth in labeling.
Okay.
So that's how they found their way in there.
Very big twist there.
I know, right? Like by hook and by crook. That's what he said. I love that. But if they had solved it, no one would really care, I suppose. But that would be if they had solved it.
Yeah.
Big if. Okay, so putting all the different departments and agencies aside, they got their first real suspect. We're just going to skip right through all their drama.
Okay.
Just skip right through it.
Got it.
Investigators assumed the culprit was a man, though records indicate they didn't automatically rule out anyone based on gender. Because, as we all know, studies have found women who kill use poison more often than men do. But they typically target people they know. Male murderers are more likely in general to kill randomly and on a large scale. So it could have gone either way.
You little psychos.
She said it. But the first suspect was an angry dude named Roger Arnold. They're all angry, I guess. So he was named. He was named by a tipper, by a caller, who owned a bar. He didn't know this at the time, but it was a guy that owned the bar that he used to go to all the time, and he was boasting about having cyanide and
brag about that. Jesus.
He had cyanide at home, and you can kill people and no one would ever know. And then he goes back to the bar. When he showed up, the guy calls the police. The police come and he gets picked up. Now, I say he was angry, and he was. He was basically on his own after a bitter divorce. He had no children, not a lot of money. He was definitely suspicious. Like,
I mean, he was bragging about cyanide.
Let me tell you, the cards didn't look good.
Yeah.
His hand did not look good. If you see what was in this man's house, there's a picture. I sent it to you too. It was just a picture of what they found. It was the Anarchist Cookbook, some guns, some weapons, Madman's Book of Formulas, stuff on explosives and guns, how to make booby traps. Not a good look.
Yeah.
That's just in one photo.
Yeah.
Right? Not a good look. Lots of circumstantial evidence, like he knew one of the victims' fathers because he worked with them and sometimes bummed a ride with him. Lived in a neighborhood that was near one of the places.
How unlucky for him.
How unlucky. I mean, just so much circumstantial evidence, but nothing, absolutely nothing. No DNA, no fingerprints that led him to linked him to the deaths. Nothing. Just all of this. Was there a lot of circumstantial evidence? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah.
Abso-fucking-lutely. He also, motherfucker, had a one-way ticket to Thailand leaving October 15th. Nice. One-way ticket. But he said, well, it was to participate in the sex trade. He was going for some of that sex trade.
Oh.
Putang. Gross. I mean, was this guy a creep? Yes. 100%. Was he suspicious? Absolutely. Did he kill those people? Not likely.
Yeah.
Not really, not likely.
Yeah.
He was so angry about being called out, though. He was so angry about being called out because he absolutely knew that forever and ever and ever, because his face was blasted on the TV, his name and everything. He's like, forever, my name, my face is going to be linked to this case. I will never be able to live this down. And that would cause anybody to lose their fucking mind.
Yeah.
And so he was drinking a lot. He was depressed. He had suicidal thoughts. This is just really, really, really bad. But he was so angry, and he was so angry at the guy. And he found out through the court records who it was that called it in. He found that it was the owner of the bar.
Yeah.
And he thought he saw this guy out at another bar or out somewhere and followed him home, and it wasn't him, and he shot him and he died. Shot this guy and he died. So he shot someone else. So he did become a killer. But he was so distraught.
Yeah.
And he killed this innocent man. And This is a quote from him, from the Tribune. "I was clinically depressed and drinking heavily every night," he wrote. His anger and rage consumed him. His wrath, he said, centered on one man, Marty Sinclair. Arnold had learned it was Sinclair who gave his name to the police when his attorney gave him a copy of his police file after his release from custody. The record includes Ford's search warrant, which named Sinclair. On June 17th, 1983, Arnold began drinking about 7 p.m. at Lily's. He had his gun with him. 3 hours later, someone told him, "Watch out, Marty Sinclair is in here," according to court records. Arnold said he left the bar and headed to a Mexican restaurant up the street. He returned to Lily's around closing time. He said after realizing he'd left his cigarette lighter there. Then Arnold thought he spotted the man he hated, Sinclair, walking with friends on Lincoln Avenue. I was thinking that this was going to be the end of his mess," Arnold wrote. In actuality, the man outside Lily's was someone else. It was 46-year-old John Stanisha, who, like Sinclair, was heavy-set, sported a beard, and hung out in the area. Arnold confronted him. "I called out to who I thought was Sinclair and said, 'Marty, did you turn me in?' Standing within 5 feet of Stanisha, Arnold pulled a gun from his waistband and fired a bullet into the man's chest. As Stanisha lay bleeding, his friends later told police he begged God not to let him die." Tylenol's 8th victim. Because really,
Yeah.
Take a drink. So he was arrested, and after 4 hours of jury deliberations, Arnold was convicted of murder on January 11th, 1984. He received 30 years in prison, but under sentencing laws at the time, he would be eligible for parole after serving half that term. So some of the cops who worked the case still think Arnold was the guy, and they died believing it. And those were like the local cops. That was like local PD.
Yeah.
Who really believed it was him. And they wouldn't let it go.
I feel like he would have admitted it at some point, like especially after he'd been arrested.
Yeah, and he's he went on to live a kind of a sort of a normal life. There's a picture of him as an older dude. He got hired by somebody who gave him a chance, and people said up and down like they just didn't believe that he was actually capable of of those murders. They just never saw anything like that in him. He probably had a lot of thinking to do when he was in prison, but he never admitted, and he said sorry.
Did they ever ask him why he had cyanide? Or did he say what he was doing with it?
He said when things started to get really bad with his wife, he's like, things started to get really ugly, and so I decided to get rid of it. So he actually didn't have it in his house. Oh. So he got rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, but the FBI and state police went a different direction. Okay. So on the same day that Sinclair called in his tip about Arnold, so that was October 6th, 1982, the task force learned that the maker of Tylenol had received an extortion letter demanding $1 million to, quote, "stop the killing." At first, they thought that it was sent by a man named Robert Richardson. But when Dan Rather posted his photo in connection with the case, because Robert Richardson was actually published in the Chicago Tribune in the editorial pages, in the opinion pages, one of his little essays or something, in connection with the case, and they had his picture. So they put his picture up there. Well, Police Sergeant David Barton said, "That's Jim Lewis." So he knew exactly who this guy was. So here's the letter. So Johnson & Johnson, parent of McNeil Laboratories. "Gentlemen, as you can see, it is easy to place cyanide, both potassium and sodium, into capsules sitting on store shelves. And since the cyanide is inside the gelatin, it is easy to get buyers to swallow the bitter pill. Another beauty is that cyanide operates quickly. It takes so very little, and there will be no time to take countermeasures. If you don't mind the publicity of these little capsules, then do nothing. So far, I have spent less than $50, and it takes me less than 10 minutes per bottle. If you want to stop the killing, then wire $1 million to bank account blah, 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 blah at Continental Illinois Bank, Chicago, Illinois. Don't attempt to involve the FBI or local Chicago authorities with this letter. A couple of phone calls by me will undo anything you can possibly do. Dum-ba-dum. So James Lewis was no stranger to law enforcement. Richardson, as he went by with his wife, had lived briefly in Chicago before abruptly leaving about 3 weeks before the poisonings. They had headed to Manhattan. So Barton told his commander about James Lewis's disturbing history, which included a murder charge that was later dropped. Is there something in the corner?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No.
You looked up there and I was like, what's behind
listening.
me?
I
I'm
was
scared.
just listening.
Okay. So there was a murder charge that was later dropped and an outstanding warrant connected to an elaborate financial scam. The last time Barton saw Lewis, Barton was searching Lewis's home as part of an investigation into credit card fraud. And upon his arrest, Lewis told authorities how the person behind the attacks may have carried out the killings by buying Tylenol, adding cyanide to the bottles, and returning them to the store shelves. Why are you telling them how they might have done it? Okay, O.J. Simpson. I lost my place. It's like, well, if I had done it, this is how I would have done it. What's that book he wrote?
O.J. Simpson?
Mm-hmm. If I had done it, or think of what it was
something
called.
like that.
Okay, sorry, I really did lose my place. It went all the way up to the beginning. Oh my God. I'm so mad. Back. Sorry, y'all. Okay. All right. Here we go. Sorry. Okay. So he said, basically, this is what I would have done if I was the one that did it, or this is probably how the killer did it. And it's like, God, you're just basically not, I think the letter itself is a letter of confession.
Yeah.
Right. But then this is like, anyway. So Lewis was also found to have previously possessed a poisoning book. And according to a confidential law enforcement document, his fingerprints were discovered on pages related to cyanide. Lewis denied being responsible for the poisonings, but he admitted to writing the letter, which he said he had worked on for 3 days. During the trial, his attorneys claimed that Lewis, quote, intended only to focus the attention of the authorities on his wife's former employer. So he was trying to blackmail or something them.
Oh, okay.
I know. Lewis was convicted of extortion and sentenced to 10 years in prison for that letter. In 2007, authorities determined that the letter had an October 1st, 1982 postmark, meaning that if Lewis's 3-day timeline was accurate, he would have begun working on the letter prior to the first news reports concerning the poisonings. When confronted with this information, Lewis recanted his timeline. Court documents released in early 2009 show Department of Justice investigators concluded Lewis was responsible for the poisonings, despite the fact that they did not have enough evidence to charge him. So that is like in court documents now. In January of 2010, both Lewis and his wife submitted DNA samples and fingerprints to authorities. Lewis said, if the FBI plays fair, I have nothing to worry about. The DNA samples did not match any DNA recovered on the bottles. Lewis continued to deny responsibility for the poisonings. A little bit about him from the Chicago Tribune. This is really frustrating, isn't it?
I feel like it could not be any more obvious that it was him, though.
Right. And this is one of those, it's not the problem of no body, no crime. It's like you just don't have enough evidence.
Yeah.
And think about, like when I said earlier, nobody wore gloves.
Yeah.
They could have easily, had they worn gloves, they could have easily gotten fingerprints.
Yeah.
But everybody and their mother touched those bottles without gloves.
Yeah.
There's just no way. It was all contaminated. There's only that one surveillance photo. Like you have the footage of her buying it, but there's no footage of anybody else in the store. What about the other footage? Like if you're going to say that that's him, like,
yeah,
then follow him. Where was he? Where did he come from? Did he come in by himself? How long was he in the store? Blah, blah, blah. You know, like it's weird. Did he buy them and return them, or did he do it all there? Well, isn't that suspicious? It only takes 10 minutes. But if somebody's spending 10 minutes in an aisle for Tylenol, that seems like a long time.
My thing is, like, if you return it, could they not track, like,
right,
who returned?
Right.
Like, look at the footage from the day it was returned.
I mean, that's assuming that he bought it. But what if he did it all while in the store? I don't know. It all seems so strange. It's all very weird. Okay, so this is a little bit about dumb fuck over here. So born on August 8th, 1946 in Memphis, Tennessee, Lewis was the youngest of 7 children. His birth name was Theodore, after his father, Theodore. His parents were poor, irresponsible, and ill-equipped to care for their children, according to federal court documents. 2 of his brothers died young, one possibly from pneumonia. The other died after eating a 2-year-old tomato during his first year of life.
I'm sorry.
And receiving no medical intervention. So after his father deserted the family when Lewis was only a year old, his mother, Opal, moved the children to Joplin, Missouri, to be closer to her own mother, but she still struggled to provide a stable home and later abandoned the children in the summer of 1948. The children survived on their own for about 2 weeks before a local grocer, let me repeat that, the children survived alone for 2 weeks. Before a local grocer contacted authorities after noticing Lewis's 9-year-old sister stealing milk, records show. So sad. The children were placed in an orphanage, and a local couple, Floyd and Charlotte Lewis, adopted Theodore and renamed him James William Lewis. He was 2 when he got adopted. The records describe Lewis's adolescent years as unremarkable. This is all from the Tribune. I think I said that earlier. He received average grades in high school, played in a band, but otherwise was somewhat a loner. The first documented sign of psychological trouble came in the summer of 1966 when he was 19. And according to the records, the teen went missing for about 2 days that June and was found in a shallow pond, apparently trying to drown himself. Oh. He was brought back to his family's home where he demanded access to his stepfather's gun cabinet. When his stepfather refused to give him the key, court records say Lewis violently attacked the older man and broke several of his ribs. As his parents fled their farm during the outburst, Lewis threatened them with an axe, the records state. Lewis was arrested on assault charges and spent 3 weeks in the county jail, where authorities said he took 36 aspirin in a suicide attempt. The charges were dropped after Lewis was committed to a state psychiatric hospital on June 24, 1966, according to federal records. The documents also state that Lewis spoke about planning, quote, the murder of a girlfriend's husband and the murder of his parents during his hospitalization. In the decades that followed, Lewis would repeatedly deny attacking his stepfather. Quote, my parents were good, loving people, he told a judge in 1984. He insisted that, quote, his commitment for treatment was merely a ruse he prepared in concert with his parents in order to evade the draft, records show. Mm-hmm. So you breaking ribs and okay.
His parents went along with that, or they were.
He also denied ever expressing homicidal thoughts or trying to harm himself, and maintained that he had doctored his hospital records to suggest severe mental illness in order to obtain a college scholarship. God, there's so many better ways.
You could get a scholarship for being mentally ill?
There's just so many better ways. I don't know if that's true or not. There's just so many better ways. Anyway, he was convicted of extortion in 1983 and spent 12 years in a federal prison. And not even bringing in the murder charges, he avoided to quite literally some stupid, shitty mistake by the cops. So this was in 1978. He was accused of killing somebody that he had a tax business at this time. And he was doing lots of bad things. Anyway, he murdered one of his clients. And so the cops cuffed him before he was read his Miranda rights. God. And when he was in being interrogated, he talked. His lawyers kept saying, you don't have to answer this. And he just kept talking. The man talked. He talked. during his interview, and they got search warrants, they got everything. But the judge said that since he had not been read his Miranda rights before he was cuffed, they could not use any of it. None of it.
Do you think he knew that?
I don't know.
I wonder if he knew that.
So they dropped the case and he was never charged. That's just painful. Then he moved to Chicago, and then, well, we know what happened after that. But he did get in trouble for some of the stuff that he did. So I said that there were some open arrest warrants based on those charges, like the when he had the tax business. In 1983, Mr. Lewis was convicted on 6 counts of mail fraud involving a scheme to obtain credit cards by using information from clients of his tax preparation service in Kansas City in 1981. In 1995, after he was released from prison in the Tylenol extortion case, Mr. Lewis moved to the Boston area. He was indicted in Massachusetts in 2004 on 6 charges, including aggravated rape and drugging a person with intent to stupefy or overpower for sexual intercourse, the Boston Globe reported.
Wow.
He was held without bail until 2007, when the victim declined to go forward with the prosecution. Although no one has ever been charged with the deaths of those 7 innocent people, James Lewis is considered to be the one responsible. Again, some may say that it was Arnold that did it, but there are court records that say that it's Lewis who was named. And the newest news in this story is that James Lewis died on July 9th, 2023. So just a few days ago.
Oh, how unfortunate.
He died a free man in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He just last year had an interview with law enforcement. It never ended for him, but he was free, and that sucks. That sucks. And now that he is dead, well, for some, this is the end of the road. The main suspect was never caught, and he's dead now, and it's still technically unsolved, and it's open, but will they continue working on it?
I wish he would have said, like, why he did it.
So the Tylenol, he never did. The Tylenol, he never did. The Tylenol Murders podcast, which is great. Everyone should listen to it. They do a much better job than I did, but the first episode starts out with them chasing him down the street. Like, we're not going to hurt you. We're just here with the Chicago Tribune. We want to talk to you. And he was like, I'm not talking to you guys anymore. Like, but you used to talk to us all the time. That was 40 years ago, blah, 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 blah. And, they're like, look, we just want to, do you know who did it? Do you know who's responsible? And he goes, well, I think it's pretty obvious. That was his answer.
Wow.
God damn it. Right?
Yeah.
God damn it. And then they're like, well, no, it's not obvious to us. Who is it? And he didn't answer after that. And it's just that kind of cat and mouse. He had letters going into the Tribune all the time, and he always called himself a victim. He really did talk a lot. Anyway, so it's still technically unsolved and open. Will they continue working on it? That remains to be seen. A lot of people are like, he's dead. It's over now. So that's my story. So much bigger than I had intended to do, but in a single episode. But here we are.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, that was a very good story.
Yay. Do we have answers?
We do.
I bet they all say the same thing. That's my guess.
Very similar.
Oh my God.
We'll start with case files.
Oh, I guess I can pull mine
Jamie, I have yours pulled up too.
Okay.
Then. Jamie says, what are the winning lottery numbers for the largest single ticket claimed prize this year? Not at all influenced by tonight's draw.
Okay.
Sarah said best investments to make in 2024. Laura said, in with Jamie, lottery numbers.
Oh, Sarah had a good answer, but a lotto ticket would have been better.
AJ with Hippie Fertilizing says Bitcoin stock prices.
What?
Chuck says, I would have to go with hot stocks that paid big. Lotto numbers come with too much publicity. Then I would see what would make the biggest impact in 2031.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, Chuck. He's so smart.
Yours, Ezra says lottery numbers for tonight. Elaine says lottery numbers and winning teams for all major sports championships. Then I'm going to the casino sports books when I get back. Yeah, I'm going to go with the lottery numbers Michelle said, which school I work at after I finish my master's to save job search time. And Chris,
that's really funny.
Chris says 2024 Super Bowl champions.
Oh, okay. So some sports. You know what? Chuck is not wrong. If people know, then they start hitting you up.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do if you win $1 billion? Like,
buy my own private island.
Everybody's going to come knocking on your door,
Yeah.
Hey, cousin, I haven't talked to you in 30 years. Right? Like, changing my number, getting a new name.
I'm going to another planet. I'm going to have my own planet. I'll be where the rich people are. You will not find me.
Oh.
I'll do the podcast from another planet. I'll figure it out.
I don't think $1 billion. I mean, you know what? I don't know how much the lotto is for tonight. But I think
not enough to send me to another fucking place.
It's just not enough. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for entertaining me with your answers.
I guess I have to have one next week.
You don't have to have one. I just found it.
I do have my story picked out for next week. It is full of twists and turns.
Oh, I'm excited.
It is very unbelievable. Like, when you hear it, you'll be like, there's no fucking way. No way. I'm not going to go into detail about it now. Ooh. But there's a lot of twists. And
I can't wait.
Really crazy.
So I'm excited. You haven't put it in the...
I have not.
In the spreadsheet.
I found it last night when I was scrolling through some stuff, and I started reading about it. I was like, I have to do that. That has to be it. That's what I'm doing. So.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, everybody. Until next week, I guess. Anything else? Like
us, share us, love us, send us story ideas, question of the week ideas, all the same things we say.
Yeah, send us some story ideas, because I feel like mine are going to be like...
Mine are just going to get darker and darker, so...
Mine stay dark. I'm this really happy person, and then I do these really sad stories, because next week's story is going to be crazy. We're going to have to burn some candles. I don't know, it's going to be crazy. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Share us, like us, love us, all that kind of stuff.
Happy spooky season.
Happy spooky season. Show us those decorations. Send it to us. Love it. Put it on our Facebook page.
Yes.
Love it. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next week.
Bye.